It seems like, over the past couple of years, you've had a lot of different moments just publicly where you have come out talking about things that are so vulnerable. And that could be really hard for a lot of people. I mean, I've only
Mm-hmm.
come out, about my mental health struggles through the pandemic. I've always been a body activist, but I've never talked about anxiety or depression. And,
Yeah.
then it starts to bring things back up and it starts to have you feel a little bit alone and identifying what was the truth in that period of my life. That's how I
Yes.
feel in some capacity, right? Because then you've got the public point of view on it and you've got all
Mm-hmm.
these other people chiming in and trying to dictate, especially journalists trying to dictate, where you want to go with it and
Yes.
how they want
Yes.
to
And
maneuver your
they just,
story.
yes, they want it to be, and this isn't across the board entirely, but for the
No.
most part, they want to really get the most eyeballs on their story. So, for example, when I first started promoting my book, it hadn't even come out yet. And we started to do some initial press. There was one podcast that they asked me about my past eating disorder and Clueless. We spoke about it for maybe 3 sentences.
Mm.
That became, now it was also the fault of the person's podcast because they led with that. That's what
Right.
they put out on social media. All these entities picked it up in the UK, in the States, everywhere. And all they did was talk about my past eating disorder. They didn't even say that I had written a book. And I went, this is incredible how powerful the media train can be,
Yeah.
and it can be powerfully for the good, or it can also be they try to dictate. And I was so disappointed, not that because I'm clearly very willing and interested in talking about recovery and those things. I think it's incredibly important. But I was there to talk about the book,
Of course, there's a time
and
and
they just
place.
completely left it out altogether.
Of
And I
course.
thought, anybody coming across this might think, well, why is she talking about a problem of hers from 25 years ago? And think
Well,
like, oh, she just must want to be on TV again, something. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Well, let's go into something wonderful for a second. Let's talk a little bit about Clueless. And the reason why I need to talk about Clueless is because I grew up in Encino on Louise Avenue. You guys
On
shot
Louise
this
Avenue.
on Louise
Yes.
Avenue. You guys shot the sitcom, the spinoff, right? Next door to our house.
Yes,
and I was
we
a little
did.
girl on a trampoline, literally jumping over, watching you guys all the time. And I was speaking to my mom about it this morning as well, because it's such a vivid memory for us, because it was before my dad was really good friends with NSYNC. And you guys' production team came over one day and was like, okay, we're sorry that we told your kids not to play in the backyard anymore, but NSYNC's here. Do you want them to come and meet them? And I guess me and my sister were so fearful that my mom just remembers us being like, no, we're cool. We're just going to jump on the trampoline and watch.
We're just going to take a peek over the fence.
We just kept peeking at you guys because we were so young and we were just like, this is so interesting. We love it. And of course, mom and dad have been in the industry for so long that they were like, what are you guys doing? Why are we rolling while we're at home? What's going on with the rolling? But I don't know if you remember Louise Avenue or shooting in Encino.
I absolutely do. I remember all of it. I remember that your family lived next door because your dad, I think, came over to say hi once, or they made him come over, something. I remember that interchange. I remember a person jumping up and down on the thing. I completely remember it all. Louise Ave, we were over there all the time. Yeah.
Such a beautiful, beautiful house, and it's such a good area. I don't know where you live now or where you did grow up or, live in Los Angeles.
I live in San Francisco now, but.
Oh my God. Mm-hmm. Look at you, done a whole different whirlwind.
Yep.
That's amazing though. Well, I mean, Louise Avenue was a huge part of my obviously upbringing. I was there for, oh my God, probably 20 years of my life. And, have that sort of synergy with you and have you on the show today has just been wonderful. But
I love it.
Let's tap into Amber, because Amber is iconic and she has been iconic for so many years. You talk about obviously the remake of Clueless kind of coming back, always having so many different lives, and obviously with so many different people in fashion today, going back to the 90s, wanting to relive these characters. What did you at that time, though, find about yourself through the discovery of Amber?
Oh, first of all, I loved and love that character because she is so unapologetic and so creative. so just, I mean, to be able to walk through the high school in some of those get-ups, and
Yeah.
it's like she wanted to be on, you know, it's like she was on the Paris runway, but going to English class. And what I loved about her that I discovered about myself that I kind of connected with is that she, you know, I always call myself the weirdo. Like I'm a little bit of a weirdo. I'm a little left of center. I don't like to go with the crowd. I'm also an Aquarian, which is very kind of, you know, we're on our own program. And I feel like Amber was the same way, just in a
Yeah.
different, you know, with different details, but she was marching to the beat of her own drummer. And I love that about her. And it kind of allowed me to really, you know, dig into that and give another side to her. I loved it.
You know, the cool thing and the reason why I ask you just even about Amber or any of the wonderful roles that you've played is because I think for one of the things that you spoke about earlier is you coping through creativity. And I think as an actor, the most wonderful job that we get is we get to heighten things and diminish things,
Mhm.
right? So we do actually tap into an idea of ourselves through playing somebody else in some way.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it can be a very defining or opening idea of our own self-discovery without even wanting that to be there. And it
Hmm.
leads me obviously into this idea of just the pressures that we may have had on screen and off screen. You know, we talk about obviously struggles and mental well-being on the show, and I wanted to know, off screen during these prominent times when you did, Sabrina the Teenage Witch and you did Clueless, did you have challenging moments? And if so, how did you show up for yourself and still get on with the show?
You know, in the early years, the Clueless years, absolutely was struggling with my eating disorder, and I had committed to recovery while shooting the film. So, you know, that presented its own challenges, and as I said, that's a very long road to recovery. But
Yeah.
so by Sabrina, I was very much, you know, people don't always like to say recovered because it sounds like you're, you know, done, but I feel very recovered. I do. And so by the time I started Sabrina, those sorts of issues weren't, you know, they always come up as an actor, because we always have, just fittings alone have got to be my least favorite part of the auditions, and fittings are
Yeah.
absolutely my least favorite part of this business. But you know, we have to be looked at. You have to, you get photographed and assessed as to whether or not this is the right top. Is it too small? Is it too big? You know, so it's this
Mm.
constant thing where you're having to always you're always looked at with a microscope. So while that's unpleasant, it wasn't such an issue with Sabrina. But throughout that, at the end of Sabrina is when my dad was diagnosed with cancer. I was in a relationship with somebody that I thought I was going to marry. I finally realized I never thought I wanted to get married. And then I was with this person and I went, oh my gosh, I want to be married and I want to have a family.
Mm.
And then it became clear that that wasn't going to work. And so, in very close succession, the show is canceled. My dad gets cancer and my relationship ends. And then my dad passed within a couple of months. So I went from having this whole life that I understood, that
Yeah.
was, I was on a successful television show, I had a great relationship, I had a healthy family, and all those things were stripped away. And I felt, I mean, I just was flattened. I was just a shell of myself, and I didn't know how to pick myself up again.